I edited a yearbook entry and never told anyone about it. This happened during my last year of high school, and I've never told anyone about it. I was part of the yearbook committee, and we had this tradition where seniors would write short texts about each graduating student. Most of them were sweet or funny, but I noticed one entry that really bothered me. There was this guy in our year who wasn't part of the popular crowd and had been bullied throughout high school. Yes, he was a bit weird, but he was never mean. Someone had written what looked like a nice tribute to him on the surface, but it was full of cruel undertones. They made subtle digs about his crush, mocked his outfit/style, and included other mean-spirited jokes that only made sense if you knew the context of how he'd been treated. The submission was anonymous, but I could tell from the email address it came from one kid that always tried to make jokes to be popular. It just felt so cruel to me, like a final last kick while he was down before graduation. So, I changed it. I didn't rewrite the whole thing, just edited out the mean parts and made it neutral and kind. I was careful not to make it overly glowing, since that would have seemed suspicious, but I made sure there was nothing hurtful hidden in there. When the yearbooks came out, no one questioned the text, and as far as I know, the guy never knew how close he came to being publicly humiliated one last time. I never told him what I did, and I never told anyone else on the committee. Honestly, I'm not sorry about what I did, even though I wasn't allowed to change the submissions. Everyone deserves to have their high school years end on a decent note. I still think about it sometimes and wonder how he's doing now, edit. Maybe to clarify something, I know this is not a horrible confession, but I felt the need to share it with someone. I know I officially did something against the school rules, which was not legally right, but like I said, I don't feel bad about that. I wanted to share this here because, honestly, it's easier to tell strangers on the internet than people I actually know. It happened over a decade ago, and bringing it up in real life would just be awkward for me to the people I know today. Like, hey, there was a kid at my school you've never heard of. Well, here's this thing I did back then. Plus, I didn't keep in touch with anyone from those days. I was one of those shy kiddos who liked to fly under the radar. I'm expecting my first kid, and that has especially got me thinking a lot about how kids treat each other. I already knew back then that it was wrong how this guy was treated, because it wasn't his fault to be different from others. He was quite nice, just socially pretty awkward, and didn't fit into the group dynamics of our year. I'm not proud of never saying something in person and only having the guts to do something when I could hide myself in a group and then escape to college. I stole my roommate's security deposit and never told them. This was years ago, but I still feel guilt about it. When I was 18, I moved in with two people I didn't really know that well. We were mutual acquaintances, but I didn't know many people in the area, and so it worked out. We were all 18/19 in college together, and this was all of our first apartments. One of my roommates, we will call Mary, and I became good friends while living together, and we are still close to this day, despite living in different states. Mary and I had a hard time living with our third roommate, we will call Joey, so Mary and I moved into a two-bedroom after our lease was over, and neither of us really talked to Joey anymore. I should mention that Joey and Mary's parents were paying their rent while we were living here, and I was paying my own rent. Not really relevant, but I was a kid trying to figure out how to make it while living with two people who were relatively carefree about money. Our landlord sucked at communicating anything to us. We had unscheduled maintenance show up a few times, random drop-ins for tours, refused to fix things, claimed we were responsible for repairs, and when we finally got our security deposit back, it was pennies to the dollars on what we paid. Even though we left the crappy apartment in almost exactly the same condition it was when we moved in. I think it was somewhere around $1,500 total, and we got back something like $375. The check was addressed to me and sent to my grandfather's house. I initially assumed it was my portion of the security deposit and deposited it. It was not. I realized months later when Joey mentioned to one of our shared friends how we never got our security deposit back. I immediately realized that I had messed up and didn't know what to do. I should have given both of my roommates $125 when I realized, but my dumb 19-year-old self was worried they would be upset and foolishly thought I deserved it more. Neither Joey or Mary ever brought it up with me, so I assumed their parents never brought it up to them. It wasn't right, but I kept my mouth shut and never told anyone. At this point, $125 isn't worth digging this up. I'm moving out and not telling anyone and don't regret it. Hello, I-24 male. I want to tell you this course. I think this is the best course of action, but want to hear your opinion about this. So in 2022, my older brother was living here at home. He's in his late 30s, approaching 40. Everyone except me and him was living at home. He does nothing, pay for nothing here, but at the end of the day, he wants a hot plate of food. He works as a doctor BTW and had 2 cars, both paid off at that time. I wasn't asking for much, just to chip in when expenses, whether I even used some of my own meal allowance to buy groceries once. But him, nothing. What's even worse is that whenever the place is dirty, he'd always get angry and shout at me saying, I need to be responsible. He's in his late 30s with no house yet. I'm the irresponsible one. I finally had enough and reminded him that he's in his late 30s, approaching 40, yet still can't stand on his own. He eventually moved out, crying, saying I hurt his feeling. He moved into an apartment unit by the river. Years later, in 2024, he was getting engaged, but nothing could happen without us talking about this first. My dad said just apologize and let this pass for the sake of peace. I agreed then. When we came to talk about it, I was the one branded as the wrong one. I was wrong for telling him the truth, that he's an old man still living at home, yet wants others to be responsible. I was annoyed, but rather swallow my pride and moved on. Now he's coming back, still doesn't have a house yet. He bought 3 other cars, a BMW, Land Rover, and Ford Raptor. Yet still no house. They're branding it as temporary, just so he can save enough money to build his house. I'm not fool, I can see he's coming back here permanently, so this time it's going to be different. I'm not arguing or talking about anything. I'm the one leaving this time. To add context, in my country, you can buy a suburban house or buy empty land, then build a house on that land. I sit in my car for an hour after work and tell everyone it's traffic. I park a couple blocks from home, kill the engine, and just exist. No radio, sometimes a podcast, sometimes I stare at a leaf on the windshield. I text traffic to the family group chat and sit there like a raccoon pretending to be a functioning adult. It started during a rough week. I told myself I needed 5 minutes to decompress so I wouldn't bring the office home. 5 minutes became 15, then an hour. Now that quiet metal box is the only place where nobody needs anything from me. Here's the part I'm not proud of. I've missed dinners. I've let calls ring out. I've walked in with a tired smile and a lie about a stalled truck on the highway. There's always a stalled truck somewhere, even when I'm nowhere near a highway. I'm not cheating. I'm not job hunting. I'm just exhausted and addicted to being unreachable. I think I'm scared that if I say I need an hour to myself, people will hear I don't love you. So I pick the coward's version, silence and excuses. It feels harmless, but it isn't. It chips away at trust, and I can hear it in the little pause before they say, okay? I'm confessing because I don't want the happiest part of my day to be hiding. I'm going to tell them the truth and ask for a real boundary. 1 hour after work, phone on, do not disturb. Then I show up fully. If they say no, at least I finally said something real. If anyone else does the car park thing, you're not a monster. But the quiet hits different when it isn't stolen. I-23M survived living with my coworker, 45M. This was 6 months of horror. I-23M used to live with a coworker I'd known for about a year. At work, he seemed fine, so I thought moving in with him would be okay. He was 45, way older than me, but I figured it wouldn't be a big deal. Turns out it was one of the worst decisions I've ever made. At first, things seemed normal, but about a month in, he started showing this other side. Some mornings I'd wake up to him yelling at himself, growling, and even breaking things. Then later in the day, he'd act like nothing ever happened. It was unpredictable, and I never knew which version of him I'd be dealing with. One morning, after being woken up again by him screaming at himself, I slammed the bathroom door out of frustration. He snapped, "Can you not slam doors in my house?" I shot back, "How about you stop waking me up yelling at yourself and breaking things?" and went to my room. That was all it took. For 20 minutes he muttered, "You want to disrespect me?" and then escalated into screaming at me through my door. "I want my ones," meaning he wanted to fight. He screamed at me like that for 2 hours straight. I was completely terrified, not sure if he was going to break down my door or actually attack me. It wasn't a one-off either. One time I carried a dirty dish out of my room. I'd forgotten it overnight, and he tried to start a fight with me over that too. It felt like he was always looking for a reason to blow up. But the breaking point came one night after work. We carpooled together, and when we got home, I hopped in the shower like usual. As I was heading to my room afterward, he stopped me and asked if I'd seen one of his cats. I said I hadn't, but I offered to help look. The longer we couldn't find her, the angrier he got. He started yelling at me, "You better hope we find my cat, and I'm gonna put you in the hospital." I suggested checking outside, but before we could, he followed me into my room and got in my face with his fist raised like he was about to hit me. I curled up on my bed, completely terrified. We eventually went outside to look for the cat, but every couple minutes he'd get back in my face with his fist raised, threatening me again. Finally, I went down a different street than him and ran. I called an Uber and went to a friend's house. A couple hours later, he texted me casually, "I found my cat." The next day, while he was at work, I grabbed all my stuff and moved into my dad's. When he found out, he went absolutely ballistic, blowing up my phone with threats, saying I was horrible for leaving without telling him, and promising that if he ever saw me again, it would be on site. And if you have made it this far in the video, don't forget to like and to share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for a cookie.